This time I'm going to talk directly about the afterlife. And is there one? For some reason it feels like a gloomy subject, but of course it shouldn't be, because after all it should be a cheerful thing if there is one, shouldn't it? The first real sort of talk, I suppose, I can remember to do directly with the afterlife as opposed to the usual funerals and so on, was Grandma, I think I may have mentioned this before, having, this is Mum's mum now, having what she said was a male cancer on her arm. She had like a sore just above her wrist somewhere here. And she used to, I think she had, what it really was, she used to just rub it often. And once you irritate somewhere and you keep rubbing it, it doesn't heal. Because it was a long time after that, before she died. I don't think she could have had cancer at all. But Grandad had died of cancer, and so I was supposed to become over an 18-month period. So I suppose it's a subject very much in her mind. And I remember asking her about it, and she said it was a male cancer, and it tries to get to a female cancer, which is somewhere else on her body. She went on then to say that it gnaws at her, and she spelled it out K-N-A-W. And at first I thought, well, if I don't think you spell it like that, but as a child you don't question it really. But she went on to explain that it's a different thing to gnawing. Gnawing, she said, destroys what you eat, as it were. If you gnaw at it, it's a destructive thing. What this type of gnawing is almost a pleasant feeling, a bit like itching, but pleasant. And then she went on to say, which this only absolutely makes any sense with hindsight, is that sometimes in the night Grandad would visit her, and he was of course dead, so he was immune to cancer, and therefore he could touch her other cancer. And well, anyway, that didn't really mean much to me at the time, though afterwards I suppose it has the obvious meaning really, because she went on to say that by rubbing this one here it reminded her of him. She was very strange really. I mean, not so much necessarily for doing that, but for telling me that when I was 9 years old. But anyway, so I think you'd have to say that this is one version of the afterlife. Now, was this Grandad in afterlife or entirely her imagination? Don't really know. Can't imagine, to be honest. I suppose the next slight connection was only once, driving along in the van. I did have somebody with me who didn't see anything, but in Wales, and I saw an typical old-fashionedly dressed Welshman walk across the road, far enough in front of me not to be sort of dangerous, but he walked across the road in front of me, and he had no feet. He was sort of walking slightly in the air, so logically it simply means for some reason you couldn't see his feet. But I mean, although it was dark, it was clear in the full gloom of the headlights, and absolutely what I saw was a man dressed in old-fashioned dress, just like you'd tell you ghosts do, walk across the road. Again, no real proof there, probably not real, load of rubbish maybe, who knows. I do know, though, of someone who absolutely believes that she found someone dead. She committed suicide by gassing herself with the exhaust of a car, and she was the one that found her. And she's supposed to have gone there earlier in the day to do her housework or something, and she was held up and was late. So she had just that slight thing of, well, maybe if I'd have been on time, she wouldn't have done it, though clearly she would if she was intending to do it. She might have not done it then, she's done it later. But she came and visited her a few days later to explain to her that it wasn't her fault, that she wanted to kill herself, and she was quite happy that that's what she'd done. Imagination or not, who knows? Nobody knows, do they? Another more silly case is that I've seen several times the phenomenon that might be called fairies. Now, not the little people, fairies, in the classic stupid storybook style, small with wings. Only seen them in Ireland, only in one particular place, on 3 or 4 occasions, I suppose. What I've noted about it was that they have a very distinctive sort of woody smell. Now, I assume that it's some trick of the light, or there's some kind of insect, a largish insect or something, which seems to be the most likely explanation. But they really do look as though, whilst they've got wings, they've got sort of like people's head and feet behind them. I've never seen any insect with the smell either, but I certainly quite happy to be convinced that that's what it was. But I can see why people say they've seen them, because I've seen them, but that doesn't mean they're real. There have been a couple of tales of the little people in Ireland that were well believed up until very recent times, saying things about them that was considered to be dangerous. So all I'll say is that people mock them, and unexplainable, slightly unpleasant things happen to them as a result, or by coincidence. Again, I'm not making the case that they're real, I'm merely stating what happened. Now, as regards belief in the old gods, I think I've explained that it seemed to be considered normal up until I had the interview with the great uncles when I was, I don't know, teenager anyway, I can't remember exactly this second. And then it seemed to be more or less just dropped. I was told not to say anything for sort of 50 years, and nobody else seemed to either, as though there was some blanket, don't mention it, and nobody did. And nobody has, in fact, since. With one slight exception, when Dad was dying, well, in fact, of course, with hindsight, it was a couple of days before he died. But at the time, of course, it wasn't 2 days before he died at all. It was while he was ill and expected to live for, I thought, some considerable time. He had was cancer of the stomach and complications from it, but he didn't, to me, in my ignorance, seem on the point of dying. He was just very ill, which is not the same thing in your head, is it? And just at the one point, he said, "What are my chances?" 50-50. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I tried to fudge the idea that, well, you're going to die, it's a matter of when, because you've got the terminal cancer happen. They told you, but I didn't say this, it's what I thought. So I said something like, well, I'm sure you've got quite a long time left, in some sort of vague way, as though you were going to get better and live for a good few more years, or you were going to live for months. To be trying to be vague about it, really. And he said, well, I think that he thinks like that he is definitely going to join what he says to me, my mother. He's going back to her, and he's absolutely, he's convinced that that's where he's going. Now, at the time, I took this to mean that he knew he was dying. But thinking back on it, of course, no, it's part of the tradition that I was taught when I was young, anyway, that you have a 50-50 chance of whether you will be allowed to go into the hall with your loved ones, or whether you'll be with the warriors, or whether you'll be with the who continues to prepare themselves for the final battle of Ragnarok, or whatever it's called. I think that he was really talking more in terms of, would he go to the hall for couples? Maybe he simply meant he was going to heaven, of course, but I don't think so. Looking back on it, at the time, these things have been out of my head for so long that I don't think I saw it for actually what it was, because it did seem as though that was the point at which he was happy to die, and he died very soon afterwards. So perhaps I should be more comforted by this than I actually was at the time. But looking back on it, he'd been through the process in just those 3 or 4 days of, can I make it up with Lily to continue to live this present life for the moment? No. Okay, I want to go back to your mother, the only woman he ever really loved. And that's what he did. So there we go. On that point, I'll say bye.